Despite 25 years of being in technology, it's always amazed me about how people have adopted and embraced technology. If you look at how many of us have got laptops at home, how many of us are connected to the internet, how many of us have got smartphones, tablet computers, how many of us are on social networks like Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter. It's always intrigued me about how people have adopted and embraced this technology. And they've done so because of one fundamental reason. We want to connect. We want to be connected. As social animals, we want to connect, not just to people, not just to our tribes, not just to our communities of interest, but we also want to connect to dreams, to adventures, to experiences, to ideas. And what makes that so important for us is that it's critical for us as humans to continue to connect and to be connected and to feel connected with the world. If I look at the audience here today, and we did a very short survey, you'll find that most of us have done a Google search sometime this week. Most of us would have sent a text message at least once. Most of us would have watched a video on YouTube if we're not watching now. And most of us would have probably read a blog post at some point in time. And I look at this room and I look at the people who are on a mobile phone. You were asked at the beginning to turn your mobile phone off. I won't ask how many actually did. And there are some of you who are actually left it on because you want to tweet. You want to share not only the information that you're hearing about today, that you're seeing today with others, but you also want to share it with people who aren't inside the room. And I will ask a question about this room. I'll ask for hands up. How many of you are on Twitter at the moment? Right, that's quite a few of you. How many of you are on Facebook? Hands up. Just keep your hands up because some of us aren't that connected and need some friends. So look around the room and you can probably connect with people during the event on Facebook. But the question I have is, what's the value? What's the value of actually being connected? And the value of being connected for me is, how do we get a return out of this? Why do we do it? We spend so much time. We spend so many resources continually connecting on a regular basis. And my question is, why do we do it? What's the return? And I've come to the conclusion through my research that it's not a generational thing. This isn't for the young people. This isn't for the middle age. It's not necessarily a generational thing. It's actually an approach. And with the right approach, you can actually connect with the right approach to be a better person. And by a better person, I mean somebody who is continually learning, continually engaging, wanting to be inspiring, wanting to improve yourself, and wanting to not only be a better you, but actually be a better person in your community or on this planet. So the idea that I have that's worth sharing today and worth spreading is to connect to be a better you. And the way I'd like to do that is to do that by giving you some stories and connecting you with some people. Let me start with Olive. I'd like to introduce you all to Olive. In 2008, Olive was the oldest and the world's oldest internet blogger. She lived up the road in Woy Woy, here in Sydney. She raised 3 children as a single parent. She lived through 2 world wars and a Great Depression. She was a station cook in North Queensland, and she was a Sydney barmaid, as well as many other rich experiences that she had in life. At the age of 107, she probably thought, it's time to tell my story. And so she learned how to blog. And so her friends and her nephews actually put her in front of a computer and taught her how to blog. Now, she was used to the interface. She was used to a keyboard. She'd learnt on a keyboard back in 1917 how to type on an Olivetti typewriter. So she was used to the interface. And she ended up, in her short time that she was blogging before she passed away, in July of 2008, over 70 blog posts, which were translated into many languages and had thousands of readers on a regular basis. What I love about Olive's story is that Olive refused to stop learning, and she connected by learning how to tell her story, her rich stories, and not only making her a better person, but leaving a great legacy behind for her family and for other communities, and was really an inspiration for people of any age to learn how to blog and to connect with their stories. The next person I'd like to tell you about is Felix. In 1945, Felix was 14 years old and found himself in the middle of war-torn Manila in the Philippines, as Manila was being occupied by the Japanese. He lost his home, he lost his possessions, he watched as his father was killed, his brother and his sister were killed in the war. With no home and no possessions, he had to rebuild his life. He rebuilt his life, he got married, started a family, and migrated to Australia in the 1970s. What he learnt during that time is that memories and things like pictures were irreplaceable. They weren't just possessions, they were actually memories of his life. And also the importance of friends and family. So what Felix did, if I could get the photo up, is that Felix actually decided to store, capture, and share all his photos and his memories digitally. And he started to use digital technology as a way of not only capturing, but sharing and storing the information. Felix is now 82 years old. He lives up the road. He has 8 children, around 30 grandchildren, and about 5 great-grandchildren. I know Felix very well because Felix is my father. Let me introduce you or reconnect you with a lady called Susan. You probably know her better as Subo. Susan was an ordinary lady who decided one day to inspire herself by presenting herself at a local talent show called Britain's Got Talent, and appeared very ordinarily. She was unemployed at the time, 47 years old. And at that time, the audience and the judges all thought that she was going to give what looked like an ordinary performance. When she opened her mouth and started to sing and projected her talent and revealed her talent to the world, Susan became a star. The video went viral around the world. She is still amongst the top 10 most viewed videos on YouTube, with hundreds of millions of views. What also inspires me about Susan is that she also built a fan base on Facebook, around 1.9 million fans, and has now created a career from being unemployed to actually being worth £22 million currently in 2012. Not bad for someone who came second in a talent show. The next person I'd like to introduce you to is Julius. Julius is a Kenyan javelin thrower. In 2011, Julius won the All-African javelin throwing competition. The remarkable thing about Julian is that he did not have a coach. Julian learned his craft, his techniques, learned about his competition, learned everything there needed to be known about javelin throwing via YouTube. And not only did he perfect his craft and understand everything that needed to be done, in London in 2012, he actually made the medal round. He missed out on a medal, but he is now ranked amongst the top athletes in the world. What I love about Julius's story is that Julius decided to empower himself and to improve himself regardless of the lack of resources that were available to him, and connected himself with the top athletes in the world without necessarily having the resources available. I'd also like to introduce you to the YouTube Orchestra. This is one of my favorite stories. If you were a musician in 2009 and you were unknown, if you could play a musical instrument, regardless of whether you were good or great, you had an opportunity to audition for the YouTube Orchestra. What happened was all you needed to do was get in front of a video camera and audition. You played a piece of music and you entered into the competition. Out of the thousands of people that actually submitted an entry, you then were judged and voted on to see whether you could join the YouTube Orchestra, with the prize being to play at Carnegie Hall, and consequently in 2011, the Sydney Opera House. Again, what inspires me and amazes me about the YouTube Orchestra story is that regardless of your status in life, regardless of your capability, regardless of who you are, you can engage with the best in the world to actually make an orchestra and to play with others. It's a fantastic story. So what do all these stories have in common? What do all these connectors have in common? I think it's three things. I think it's attitude, I think it's behavior, and context. Easy to remember, the ABC of connection. First of all, there's the attitude. If you think of Olive and you think of Felix, they wanted to learn and they wanted to share. And their way of connecting was to continue to learn and continue to share so that they could tell their rich stories, or that they could leave a legacy behind, or that they could continue to store those memories. If you look at the behavior of all those people who actually auditioned for the YouTube Symphony Orchestra, again, their behavior was about engaging, about presenting yourself, about putting yourself out there and seeing what you're like so that you could be part of a community of interest of musicians who play the best music. And from a context perspective, there's none better than the Susan story and the Julia story. Susan decided to inspire herself first by putting herself out there, regardless of what people thought of her, and actually reveal her value. And for Julius, he didn't have the resources available, but he still was able to connect with the best in the world to become the best in the world. So what of the future? Well, our kids, when you think about attitude, behavior, and context, eat this up, literally. What's happening with kids, if you look at them, is that their attitude towards technology is that it's quite innate. If you've ever seen a child pick up a mobile phone or swipe a screen, it's almost second nature to them. If you have a look at their behavior, they seem to know exactly what the technology is going to do and how to apply it. If you look at the context, they seem to be able to apply it almost automatically and know exactly what application to use at the right point in time, which bodes really well for them to continue to connect, to be better people, but also to build a better future for all of us. I'd like to leave you with one final thought, which is, as a very close friend of mine once told me, nothing is nothing in life is better than actually living it. And if you are connecting, if you're learning, if you're engaging, if you're inspiring, if you're improving, if you're sharing, and you're conversing, then that's what would make you a better you. Thank you very much.